Over to you, Emmanuel, and then later we'll have a discussion so that then we can engage with the presenters. Thank you very much, and let's enjoy the presentation.
Thank you, Doc. Good morning to everyone. And my name is Emmanuel. Having a little bit of a challenge, so I will not show my video for now, but I hope as we go on, I'll be able to get it up. My name is Emmanuel, Obetsebi-Lamptey. I'm a communications manager for the Coastal Development Authority in Ghana, and a member of the International Association for Community Development, IACD. I'm here with my colleague, Rebecca Asare Darko, who will also be presenting on specific interventions in inclusive education as someone who works in an inclusive education angle of dealing with children with special needs. And so I will try to speak about all the aspects of dealing with or helping children with special needs, but leave the education aspect to Rebecca. And as usual, we'll be relying on what the IACD prescribes, what the global view is, and of course, rely on our participants to help with the views and insights they can share from their own national jurisdictions. And so I'm going to share my screen. And so the topic of my presentation this morning is holistic approaches to community development. And in the outline, we have the introduction. We'll go on to present on understanding special needs and the challenges faced by children with special needs. Then we'll try to contextualize attitudes towards children with special needs in African cultural context. And then we'll go on with our recommendations on what we call a holistic approach to community development. And then we'll see if we can draw some conclusions based on the interaction. So just to give a little background about my work with children. I work with the SOS Children's Villages Family Strengthening Program, and it is about selecting children who have lost or are at risk of losing parental care, but not taking them to orphanages or institutions, but helping them while they stay with their biological families in their natural environments and giving them support. When I was on the program, one of the things we did was to establish the Child Protection Committee. So it was a committee on the program.
With you can see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen, Doc. Thank you.
Then you'll guide me?
Yes, I'll guide you, Doc. So the Child Protection Committee was there to protect the rights and promote the rights of children in Choko based on the SOS program. So I'll go on now. Yes, Doc, we are on the right slide. So the objective of this presentation is to explore holistic approaches to creating positive impact in the lives of children with special needs. Basically, when we say we are creating holistic approaches, we know that children with special needs, and we want to say that the terminology has been evolving. When we say children with special needs, it's not different from what we'll see in literature, children with disabilities. We've seen challenged, differently abled, and all those things. So all those terms basically mean the same thing, but we try to reduce the negative impact or connotation. And so for now, at this stage, the terminology we are using is children with special needs, because we believe that disability is not inability, just that these children may have certain peculiar needs by virtue of their vulnerability. And so we'll look at that and see how our work and our discussion can elicit some views and recommendations on making lives better, creating communities where everybody will be accepted, irrespective of their disabilities or their special needs. Then, of course, we will also be evaluate some of the strategies that are being implemented now and see how effective they are. Of course, we'll have a snapshot of how the global system is working on that. And we'll look at how this is also being handled in Africa, for instance, as Sub-Saharan Africa specifically. And then I'm sure it will help to inform us going forward. Then, of course, we need to promote the concept of understanding and empathy. And this presentation will also deal with that. So like I said, we should have at the back of our minds that we may be using the words interchangeably, the terms, because the terminology has been evolving. Then we need to also understand that, yes, I'm speaking from Ghana. We are all joining from different parts of Africa or different parts of the world. These national frameworks are not the same. So we should have at the back of our mind that we are, even though the IACD says something that is common to all of us, even though the United Nations Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities says one thing that should be implemented across the board, national policies are not identical. They are not the same. And so the insights that we'll share today will help us to formulate a common way forward for Sub-Saharan African children with special needs. Then, of course, we need to see the significance of the topic in terms of how we, all of us, even for those who do not have children with special needs, how we can ensure that their rights are protected, how we can ensure that they are well integrated, and how we can ensure that public facilities are accessible to these people. It means that even the architecture must be designed with children with special needs in mind. That will ensure that we will not see them and say, this meeting, we should have brought in a wheelchair, or this building, this washroom, we should have had this facility. No, we should have these things at the back of our minds, even in all of our developmental approaches. So this is what I call a holistic approach to dealing with children with special needs. So let's understand special needs. What are some of the definitions you can look at? So the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities states that persons with disabilities include those who have long-term physical, mental, intellectual, or sensory impairments, which in interaction with various barriers may hinder their full and effective participation in society on an equal basis with others. This is what the United Nations says. This is how they are defining it. And indeed, when you look at SDG 5 and SDG 10, which are the goals relating to reduce inequalities and gender equalities, you see that, yes, this has been taken care of on a very theoretical level. But as we've said before, and as we always discuss in our meetings, that there is too much of the theoretical aspect. So our task at this webinar is to see how we can actualize this, how we can practicalize what the United Nations has defined and what the goals and targets set in SDGs 5 and 10. Then the African Union Disability Inclusion Guidelines for Youth Exchange also states that disability is a combination of individual factors, so-called impairments, and social factors, which are considered barriers. That document goes on to refer to the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say here that we must realize that disability is a lifelong condition. And one of the reasons why we need to have a webinar like this and look at how we can all come together to deal with all aspects of a child with special needs life, that is health, education, socialization, and other personal and career development and even employability, is because parents of such children, more often than not, become overwhelmed Because if you have 4 children and one of them is a child with disability, you may end up realizing that you have to invest a lot more time, perhaps at some point, the equal time to what you spend on all the other children. And so many parents become overwhelmed. And that is why for us in IACD, it is very, very positive that we have organized this webinar so that we see how we can bridge the gap, how we can get the right support for these parents. And we are looking at it from the community perspective. So essentially, our task is to see how we can build communities where such children, because every child is already vulnerable, and that is why all children must enjoy all child rights. But children with special needs have peculiar vulnerabilities. And again, like I said, this is a lifelong condition. And so we need to build the kind of systems in place in our communities to ensure that these people do not feel left out. After all, the SDG says no one must be left out. And so we need to look at it from that angle. Then our own IACD states in theme 6 that we must design, and the IACD standards is like the Bible of community development practice globally. So from what UN has said, which AU has taken on, we community development practitioners, we are saying that we must design and deliver practices, policies, structures, and programs that recognize and respect diversity and promote inclusion. IACD could not have been more emphatic because this is a very general theme. But going forward, like I said, due to the heterogeneity of national frameworks and due to the diversity and the peculiarities of situations, we need to take this, what IACD has told us, and see how we can incorporate it in the formulation and implementation of our programs in the communities. Doc, please, next slide, please. So what are some of the challenges faced by children with special needs? First of all, they face all challenges that children may face due to minority, because all children are vulnerable. But these children are more vulnerable due to their disability. And some of the pictures I'm showing there are work that we did with SOS. That was when we were doing child early enforcement. The photo shows a placard campaign we held for a group of school children in Mamprobi. So that is the picture. And so, yes, we are saying that these children, they have special, so for instance, when this child goes to a hospital and the person is physically challenged, do we have the systems in place? If we do not have a system in place, then it's a challenge because the child may not be able to make full use of a chair for regular children. If the child has hearing difficulty, does the hospital, or even if it is not just a health facility, but another facility where the child is receiving some essential service, do they have hearing aids or required assistive technologies and things like that? Now we also ask ourselves, we as a community, how do we even handle these children? That is the biggest challenge. And this is where I want to contextualize it in our African society. Ladies and gentlemen, we all know from our African countries, we say, when we see people with disability, we usually say that, yes, it is the result of curses, invoked by other people, or curses imposed as punishment on the parents or on the family or ancestors of the child. We say disability is the result of someone else's doing. We say disability is because the parent of that child insulted someone when the woman was pregnant. We say that it is the work of witches and wizards. I mean, this is what literature has captured broadly about the perspective that we hold in Africa about children with disability or disability in general. We think it is a punishment, but the situation is evolving and it is improving. And discussions like this will help to give us more insight. So as a child, if you are living in a house or you are living, yes, in a house. Let's start with the nuclear family, where in the broader community, people feel that if you have disability, it is because you have some spiritual attack, or you are somebody that is suffering for a specific offense. It even affects the way your own siblings may treat you. If your parents do not have the right understanding and education to give the right empathy and support, they may also treat you like an outcast. This will go on into the general community situation, where people will look at you and mock you and call you names and compound your vulnerability. And so, ladies and gentlemen, the individual child with the special needs in Africa faces a lot of challenges, not just the challenges relating to education, not just the ones relating to accessibility of public facilities or essential services, not just the ones that relate to health, but the ones that relate to our cultural entrenched negative views. So these are some of the challenges. This is the perspective I want us to bring to this discussion today. So that when we feel that our child is being punished for something that we've done, even when there are services available in the community, we may not take the child, or we may, we may say, oh, this is just a 9-day wonder. It won't go anywhere, because we know this thing is spiritual. Ladies and gentlemen, the whole world is saying that it is not spiritual. The whole world is capturing the essence of the causes. And so we need to look at things differently. So what are some of the challenges faced by even some of the parents with special needs? Yes, if you live in a community and they say when you are bad, you have children with disability, and you are the parent, they might easily say that you might as well be an offender. So parents are also called names. They also become vulnerable because of the entrenched cultural views that we hold in Africa about the causes of disability, or the conditions of children with special needs. Now, another challenge that we may also face, or that children face, is that many times people are of the view that when a child has one form of disability, then they may have other forms of disability. Yes, and it has been shown in literature. For instance, if someone has a speech or hearing difficulty, we tend to think that those people are not as smart as their colleagues who can hear and speak. But this has been proven not to be true. We tend to think that they cannot think. It's just that they may not be able to express themselves. That does not mean they are not thinking. And so we see that people associate a lot of negativity and weakness, impairment to disability, where they even stretch it or overstretch it. We need to look at these things. All the things I've said boil down to the next point, which is social stigma. Social stigma is predominantly determined by social cultural factors. What is the cultural orientation of the place? Yes, how you see or treat a child with special needs can be seriously affected depending on whether you are living in rural Africa or you are living in maybe a cosmopolitan city. Even though there may be similarity, we know we have witchcrafts. Ability can be the cause or effect of some form of witchcraft. Just last month, Ghana has passed a new law to disband all witchcrafts. Which means that at the national level, some of these negative cultural practices are being dealt with. So that is it. And all these come to create lack of inclusivity in in our lives as people. Like I said, I mentioned the inadequate support systems. And Doc, please, I'd like to go on. So the inadequate support system, just have to say that if it comes to education, we may not have willing or enough available institutions that would like to incorporate, inclusive education as part of their delivery. If it comes to health institutions, we may not have all the assistive technologies or the systems in place, the personnel and the experts, technical know-how. if it comes to our social setting, we may not have parks. When we go to public places in Africa, we do not see that we have these brothers and sisters of ours who grew up as children with special needs in mind. A colleague of mine was telling me last week about how he is physically challenged in one leg. So he walks with a stick. He was talking about how he attended University of Ghana and he had to attend lectures on the 5th floor of one of the buildings. And there was no elevator. And so he has to be, moving up and down the stairs. But he is good. Between the two of us, no one can tell who is more intelligent or who is more competent in our work. But the man is just, he has special needs. And so when we are creating, we are building a block, we should have him in mind. So these support systems are what reduce the vulnerabilities and empower children with special needs, their families, and our communities. Doc, next slide, please. So, like we say, a holistic approach focuses on addressing the various aspects of a child's life. So, ladies and gentlemen, you name it. What are the aspects of anyone's life? Anyone's life. And for every aspect of life that we take, we need to ask ourselves the fundamental question, whether we have the legal framework, the institutional mechanism, the commitment of leadership, communities, the collaboration of different stakeholders to ensure that we do not stigmatize against children with special needs, and we do not compound their vulnerabilities by calling their names. We should integrate them. Wherever people of regular ability go, we should be able to see that, yeah, we have children with special needs, because in every community, there will be people with special needs. So wherever we are meeting, we should see that we have made room for our brothers and sisters. So community development and support it boils down directly to those of us who are community development practitioners, academics, NGO workers, donor agencies, public institutions, government officials, and government agencies. How do we work together? And when we say community, and the word community is crucial in this context, because, for instance, even if you look at the Constitution of Ghana, it tells you that Ghana's laws recognize customary law. And by definition, customary law in Ghana refers to the practices or the rules or the regulations or accepted norms within a particular community. Because even in the same constituency, you may have different communities with different cultural norms. And so we always want to highlight what we mean by a community and reduce the geographical reach, because two communities may have two different ways of doing things. And so we say, when we discuss these things, it's about how we mobilize people in a particular community. So, ladies and gentlemen, the stakeholders there, how do we ensure that we do not allow negative cultural practices? Because as we are saying, one of the fundamental challenges, there will be disability. There will always be children with special needs. But how we ensure inclusivity, how we tolerate and ensure diversity is by living together as a community that is committed to the development and providing support to these brothers and sisters of ours. Like we said earlier, it is a lifelong condition, a lifelong condition. So the systems must also be sustainable. They must be sustainable. We will not start an intervention and stop it. We will start when we know we have considered a lot into the future of the implementation, so that when there are bottlenecks, implementation stage challenges, they will not get us to revert to square one. Funding will come in big time. But that is why we are having these discussions, so that we see how we collaborate. Because as I can see, we have people in every community across Sub-Saharan Africa who are willing and able to offer the right support and create the right systems. So the other angles of the operation must be brought to bear, so that we do not leave anyone behind, as the UN has professed for the SDGs. So what's the importance of international frameworks in promoting inclusive communities? Ladies and gentlemen, I have said before, and it's not about me, the literature supports it. That most of these global goals and things are very good. They are solid, but they are just like wishes. They are wishes, because can we ask ourselves, are countries compelled to carry out these goals? For instance, let's take SDG 1, eliminate all forms of poverty in all places. Poverty affects is an angle that must be dealt with in dealing with children with special needs. The SDGs are supposed to climax in 2030. We have about 6 or 7 years to go. Can we tell ourselves that we have eliminated poverty in all of these forms in all places on the face of the earth? On that basis, I continue that these international frameworks are good, but there is just a wish list, but we can learn something from it. So the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities is there. How are we tapping into what it says? We have the IACD guidelines, which is a specific guideline for community development practitioners. Can we say to ourselves that all community development organizations are following the dictates or the admonition of the IACD on inclusion and diversity to ensure that we do not alienate children with special needs? What do our different national frameworks say? What do they say? Are they practical? Are they relevant? Are they sustainable? These are questions that we ask ourselves, questions that agitate our minds during every IACD webinar. And that is one of the reasons why I like the IACD webinars, because we always ask ourselves how we can put into practice these principles, these theories. And so, ladies and gentlemen, all we are saying today is that it is not enough. And we are saying it because we know we have a broad, a wide diversity of stakeholders. It is not enough for us to have the principles. It is not enough even for us to have the organizations who believe in the principles. What we are looking for are the interventions. They must be targeted. And as we also see, each child with special needs is unique and peculiar to another. And that is why, for instance, as Rebecca will show, in education, inclusive education, the particular children receive special attention. And so that idea of one size fits all, oh, we are going to this country and this is what we are going to do. No, we spoke about something like that at the last Global Researchers Forum meeting, that when we are going into a community, we should not have preconceived notions about how the community should be involved in the process. We should do participatory planning, which is another key thing in the IACD standards. We need to start planning with the community people. They will tell us what the cultural norms that have affected these perceptions. They will tell us what the local assets are, the people who can be identified to help. Ladies and gentlemen, international frameworks are good. National frameworks are good. But none of them works unless you and I work in the community. So we should have this at the back of our minds. Doc, next slide, please.
Yeah, if you can make some progress so that we allow time for Rebecca and also the parents.
Yes, I'm signing off. So I've mentioned all this already, the health and well-being, which is the another dimension of children with special needs, another aspect of their lives. How do we ensure that their physical and mental health are solid? How do we create accessibility to facilities and special therapies? All these questions are being asked in the community development context. And then the early intervention and support services, so that when we see that, we don't say that, oh, this child is disabled because of witchcraft, rather say this child needs early treatment and early support. So as we can see, then the parental and community involvement, the role of parents and caregivers in the development of special needs, I've mentioned that as well. Then our role will be key. That will be in the sensitization. In addition to the intervention, we need to do a lot of education, because once these things are based on cultural perceptions, it is important to change those perceptions. And to change those perceptions, we need to engage. To change those perceptions, we need to involve people. To change those perceptions, we need to bring people on board and play the roles with them. And so, ladies and gentlemen, these are the ways by which we think we should be going forward. And like we said, we should be looking at how we create inclusive spaces. If you go anywhere, I think one of the key lessons I'm learning from how we are making inroads, even globally, and even in Africa, when it comes to inclusive education. But in the other aspects of children's life, we don't seem to make a lot of, inroads. So why don't we call on leaders to say that now it should be the norm, or it should be the standard, that if you want to start a school, you should have somebody who is going to give a dimension of inclusive education or something. If it is a hospital, if it is a social facility, these things are there, but the enforcement may be a problem. We need to touch on these things again. So we create inclusive spaces where everywhere we go, we know that we have in mind these children with special needs. And of course, in employment and things, we know many organizations have policies and all that, but do we adhere to them? I mean, what are the odds? What are the odds against people with special needs and that? And for those who may not be able to be employed due to the peculiarity of their situation, can we create opportunities for independence and things like that? And so to wrap up my presentation, I just want to show something about a success story. This is Haven. Haven is founder. She's the lady in the picture. The photo there, or the artwork there, was created by a child with special needs. Now, what they are doing that makes me so happy is that, because we all know funding is a challenge, they try to get funding to enroll children with special needs whose parents cannot afford to bring them to such institutions, because most of those institutions are very expensive. So that is some information on them there. I'll share their presentation, and of course on our WhatsApp page, this one pager that I got from them. And so yes, this is one of our friends. He's doing thread art. All these art pieces of art were created by children with special needs, which underscores the fact that if you are committed, if you want to do the work, we can do it. Why should we leave these people out? We can actually use some of these pieces of art to raise some funds. At the community level, there is a lot more that we can do. Children must not be left out due to their special needs. As you can see, there is more. So at this stage, ladies and gentlemen, I will hand over the presentation, my mic, to Rebecca, so that she will come and give us more insight on how this can be done in education.
Okay, thank you. As said already, I'm a worker at Shodi International School, and I am a Sanko person. I deal with special needs as well as a mainstream teacher. I heard about IACD. I was overwhelmed when the topic was sent to me, because I collaborate hand in hand with Emmanuel because of his passion for the NGO and child support. So successfully, he brought up this topic, and I was so much interested, and I had to join him. And I said, this is a good opportunity for me to also bring out my advocacy on special needs and why we need it more in our schools, in our mainstream schools, and how better we can accommodate these people that after everything, after their education, they wouldn't be left out. They can get work, they can join associations, organizations, and be as normal as a regular person is. So here comes the stage where I wanted to define what special needs is, but it looks like Emmanuel has said a lot about what special needs education is, also do or handle children with special needs. I'll leave my definition and go to some special needs that I have identified, especially with the learning difficulties. That is autism, ADHD, if we say ADHD, attention deficit and hyperactive disorder, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, dyslexia, mental retardation, dementia, among others. All these things, all these are special needs conditions that needs attention in schools. Mostly, we do not give these children attention and we take them to special needs schools, which mostly turns out that they do not learn a lot from our regular children. When they are mixed up with the mainstream school, they turn out to learn positive stuff from them. So we advocate more for them. So as I was saying, we advocate more for acceptance. When you come to Africa, our sub-Saharan Africa, most people do not accept the fact that they join their children with special needs children. So it's like we still advocate more that inclusive education should be something that must be a must in all schools, because everybody, if they are left out and we do not accept them, it's going to be, I think.
So our apologies, we seem to be having some connection from the team from Ghana. Let's see how it proceeds. Then if the event, then we can possibly go to see what happens to progress the discussion. Emmanuel, we are on top of the hour. We also need to be considerate, and since we still are parents, to say one or two things. If you can see how you can manage the time and the presentation. Meantime, possibly you could have any comments as we wait for them to come in based on what we've already heard, that we still need to be inclusive in all that we do, and more so when we are now dealing with issues of inclusiveness and disability as it relates to children, and then even as that has implications in terms of how, again, we exercise responsibility to the vulnerable, children being vulnerable just by age, and then now being vulnerable by virtue of living with the disability. And then, of course, we need to see how to bring them on board in our community development work. And as Emmanuel is indicated, we could have all the policies, we could have all the frameworks, but if we don't translate them into tangible interventions, then that's where they remain. Oscar, you have your hand up.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan. I think that was a wonderful presentation from the team. Save for the network problem. I completely agree with the position that we've got to do more in terms of integration, mainstreaming, alignment of our programs so that they are more inclusive of persons with special needs. This is interesting, particularly for me. I've just come from a session where I was presenting a draft strategic plan for a board of management of a local organization, and the fact that people are struggling with integration and then allocation of schools with special needs is something that we would probably want to hear the team make a presentation around. There's a debate on do we make special schools and do we promote that people with special needs go to schools that have those special needs facilities to better accommodate them, versus the fact that we need to integrate these special needs requirements in existing, for example, learning institutions, so that we are trying to just mainstream. People with special needs don't necessarily get special schools, but join people without those needs and work within those situations. So that's something that I think we would want to hear the thoughts of the team presenting how they're proposing that is dealt with. I don't know whether that was clear. The debate between integration and then allocation of special needs schools. Can we get a middle ground? Is it something that is black and white? Do we separate? Otherwise, I think this presentation was very relevant to the local needs that we are trying to address through the different interventions we're involved in. And congratulations to the team for such a wonderful presentation. Thank you.
When the team comes in, then possibly we will deal with that. And but in the meantime, that's a challenge to all of us. The trend has to for quite a bit of time to have special schools to deal with the children with special needs. But then there's also the argument that possibly we need to have integrated schools which are responsive and can take care of all the children, including those with special needs. That's a debate, and that's a discussion we can have. Let's hear what Dora has to say.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Hello, my name is Dora Diabisu, and I'm a parent. I think my network is a little bit unstable, so I would like to, if I could show my face. Okay, yes, so I'm a parent, and Rebecca happens to be a teacher for my ward who is on the spectrum. I think this discussion is very relevant and very dear to my heart as a parent, because it's quite overwhelming and challenging to have a child with special needs, and it's difficult getting schools that would be able to accept your child for who or the state in which he is in, and have the means to offer some form of support for the child. So I would say that personally, I have been in one school and the other, and we happen to be out. But fortunately, at Rebecca's end, I can say that I've seen a progressive change in my boy. Initially, he was totally nonverbal, but finding himself in the midst of, in quotes, typical children is helping him to break the silence. And in one way or the other, he's putting words together. He's making tremendous progress in his writing, which was virtually non-cooperative even at the initial stages. And I also think that society needs to be sensitized to a point where they come to understand the situations that children with special needs go through and offer them some form of acceptance, because it's very difficult to have your child in a setting, typically like a church setting, where an autistic child, typically like mine, will not be able to sit for long hours, and he's hyper and will break the silence where everybody has to be quiet. So I have to also find ways and means of moving around with him, and yet still making him feel part of whatever activity is ongoing. So I would personally recommend your discussions today, and whatever program you guys are doing, I think is a good initiative and it's a step in the right direction. But however, as a gentle plea, from a gentle plea from a parent, I would also ask that more is done in this particular area to have our children feel part and not left out of society. Thank you.
Thank you, Dora, and appreciate your input and all the best. Yes, again, you support your child to make the best of all that is ahead of the life. Now we have Linda who wants to step in and to wrap up what Rebecca was trying to present. If you can allow her maybe 5 minutes or so. Linda, you can come in and quickly just wrap up what Rebecca was trying to say.
Good morning once again. So Rebecca is my head of department in child education. So when she told me about this program, we all planned to make a submission here. All right, so inclusive education, virtually it's including children, every child, irrespective of their background, their disability or their abilities. We bring all children together so that they can all have an equal goal. And the goal is that every child should be able to learn. So we bring these children together in the same school. All right, so on our slide, we have some learning disabilities that are common in our schools or common in our environment. We have them as autism, ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. We have Down syndrome, and there is also dyslexic, cerebral palsy, mental retardation, and dementia. It comes in diverse ways. Learning disabilities is numerous, and it's not just autism, which is so rampant now, but then mental retardation, children who have short memory, children who are so much hyperactive when it comes to the environment, when they see people or when they are in the same environment with their friends, they become so hyper that it makes them unstable to even learn. We have dyslexic, children who also have difficulty in reading and writing. They all form part of the learning disabilities. And we can't exclude them from education. We can only do our best to include them or find ways to accommodate these children in the classroom and also in the social settings that we have. All right, so we'll move on to benefits of inclusive education. Some people might think inclusive education is not so good. It will make the intelligent children rather calm down in their learning. No. It's a way of giving the other children the opportunity to also be part of the educational setting. We do this to help children so that they can also learn and also learn from their friends whom they sit in the same class with. So what are some of the benefits of inclusive education? Equal access to education. I think nobody will want his or her child to be left out in the educational center. No, everybody wants his or her child to also benefit from the education or to also benefit from the good things happening in the world. And we get all these things through education. So it creates equal access for every child, irrespective of their disability or their ability. Fostering tolerance and diversity. It helps children with different or unique abilities to come together so that they can all learn as one people. Enhance learning outcomes. It also helps us to make children learn and also get the right outcome. The objective of learning should be achieved at the end of it all. We do this through providing one-on-one support for the children and also giving them resources that can help them to learn and achieve the outcome of learning. Personal and social development. Children who have autism or who have any learning disability might have difficulties even taking care of their own selves. But through inclusive education, teachers or caregivers are able to support these children to develop their personal and social development. They can make aids in personal development where the child can easily lace his or her shoe, can brush or keep himself neat, knows how to keep himself, his personal hygiene well. Social development too. The child will be open to other children in the environment where he or she can also mingle and learn how to live in a society. Differentiated instruction. Differentiated instruction is also another benefit where the teacher uses different pedagogies in helping children of different abilities learn. So a teacher can inculcate visual learning in his visual teaching, small groupings. We can also use audio so that every child will also benefit. If the child is a visual learner, he gets his from it. If the child is an audio learner, he also gets his from that. Okay, so because my time is short, I want to make it fast. All right, so the positive learning too is another benefit children or inclusive education brings to the classroom. Positive learning. The child can easily learn and be motivated to also do something because his friends are also doing something in class. Empowerment. We empower the children, we empower parents, and we empower any stakeholder who is also involved in the inclusive education to help. The role of the communities in promoting inclusive education for children. Okay, so as said, with the benefits of inclusive education, what is the role of the environment, the community, the role of the teachers, the role of the parents, and even the role of those who don't have special needs children? What are we supposed to do? We can also help in making this dream come to pass by supporting the inclusive education agenda. Whether you have a child with special needs or not, we can all join hands together to make this dream come true. So some of the roles are foster empathy. Let's put ourselves in the shoes of parents who have children with special needs. It's not as easy as we think. Sometimes our stereotyping attitude, trying to be like, what is this? Some children even have saliva, especially children with special needs. Some can ooze out saliva and they will come close to you. What do we do when they come close to us? Do we just push them away or we run away from them? Their saliva doesn't it doesn't transmit any disease to us. Let's show empathy. Let's be patient with them. Let's show love to children and parents with special needs. Also, break down stereotype. The prejudice and the stereotype is too much, so we have to do what? Break it down so that we can also help in this agenda. Implement tailor-made community interventions that address the unique special needs of each child. Every special needs has its own need. Any special child has his or her need. So please, let's educate the community. The community should also come up with different interventions, every child and how you can handle him. Let's learn the ways of the children and also find ways we can intervene to help the children so that they can develop very well. Promote equal opportunity in the design and execution of community projects. So community can also create the opportunity or design any way we can help to execute this agenda. Let's create opportunities for collaboration. One person can't do it all. The teacher in the school can't do it all, or the school owner can't do it all. Parents and stakeholders can also come together to support with resources so that we can help make this goal come through. Thank you so much. If there is any question too, we can pose and then we'll all share ideas.
Thank you, Linda, and appreciate your coming on board to support the presentation. Just made our day. There was a plan to have parents come in. Dora has come in. I don't know if you have another parent who can quickly take a minute or so. Yes, Lady Mai.
Yes, good morning from my end. Also, my daughter is in Rebecca's class at Shield.
Okay.
And I have seen some quite let me say improvement with her relating with kids with special needs. She also understands that they are all part of us, and even though they are different, they can relate to them as normal as they are. So it's also like our dear sister was with we the parents also need to teach our children how to relate, how to see these special kids, and letting them know that they are not any different from them, and that they shouldn't like shy away from them or push them aside, or they have to relate to them normally as they relate to other kids that are normal to them. So it's all boiled down to parents as well to also try and teach their children not to push kids with special needs aside. If they see anybody who is quite different or behave different from how they behave, it's not anything that's like they shouldn't be friends with them or they shouldn't do anything as normal as they all do with their friends in class. So I would say, yes, we parents also need to be part of this education and help our kids to also relate to other kids with special needs. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Lady Maya, and that's great. The whole concept of empathy, and again, being involved in the whole process of education, that again, it's not left to the teachers to do each and everything. And then the whole issue of integration, so that then we can all be part and parcel of the general growth and development of the children, and in all that we do to make a healthy society. Any other parent, or we can now move to comments and any questions that might be raised?
Daniel, I just want to comment and say thanks for the very, very informative session. And I think especially I thought at the beginning, what are we up to now? And it was amazing. Thanks for that, for all the participants and the presenters. Pretty much an African approach to it. But I want to add, I was involved in disability research, but specifically with a focus on the deaf people who are deaf and the training of them. And what was an amazing moment when we, in our research, discovered that there are job opportunities for the deaf, which they perform better than hearing people. And once we discovered that, we could market and advertise the disability in a different way. There were 24, I think we identified, if I remember correctly, 24 job areas where a person that is deaf would outperform a person, a hearing person, simply because of the disability becomes then the advantage. Amazing stuff. By the way, one of them was proofreading, editing books. They outperform hearing able people because they read different. They read technically. They don't read with sounds in the head and skipping and reading over errors. But that's just interesting stuff. Thanks for a great presentation for the presenters. Thanks.
Thanks, David, and most appreciated. Monica from CBM.
Yes, thanks a lot also from my side for these great presentations. And I would like to follow on what the last parent actually said, that children with disabilities are actually no different from other children. They have the same desires, they have the same aspirations. And I would like to challenge ourselves with something that one of our trainers said. I shared that I'm responsible for our training program, and every training that we run, we have one trainer who is a person with a lived experience of disability. And he said to us, my needs are not special. So I would like to challenge ourselves about the use of children with special needs, because every child needs to play, needs to eat, needs to move, needs to learn. That these are the needs of everyone. And he said to us, my needs are not special. I need specific support in order to meet my needs, but my needs are like everybody else. Yeah, and this brought a lot of thinking also in us, because we use this term special needs. So just a reflection, challenging ourselves about the terminology we use might even separate children more from other children. And as I said, this is from one of our trainers with disabilities who challenged us in the use of the term. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. And I think that that's quite empowering, because we keep on moving all over with issues of technology, of terminologies. And this makes it even more clearer when it is coming from a person with a lived experience, where we focus more on what needs to be made available to the persons who need special support to be able to live a dignified lives. And so that of course would mean rephrasing even the topic in terms of what we are presenting. And that's quite very helpful. Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments? Okay, there are comments in the chat. And again,
Okay,
Jessica has
so
undertaken to
Linda,
save
I
all
want
the
to,
comments and then share with us, so that again, we have resources that we can fall back on. Yes, Linda.
okay, so this is it's a contribution I want to give, and especially an advice to parents. As a teacher, most parents come with so much complaint or expectations of their children. I thought my child could do this. I want my child to do that. We've seen that parents have high expectations when it comes to children with special needs. They are learning. I want to say that in as much as every child is included in the learning process, they all have different paces as to how they grasp the learning or the outcome of the learning. So parents should be patient with the teachers, so that teachers can also work with the children and do it better for them. Because one parent raised a concern that my child has been learning ABCD. I know my child can write ABC up to Z, but why is he still learning it? Probably you don't know why the child is still on the ABCD. So I'll urge my parents to have expectations, but then their expectations shouldn't be so high that it can't be achieved. They should set realistic expectations and also realistic goals, so that we can easily measure the growth of the child, than setting high expectations and then you come and you see that your child can't meet it so well and you get aggressive. Especially those paying school fees, they get aggressive when they think their child is not doing anything better. So please, our expectations should be there, but then it should be moderate. Let us set it realistically so that we will appreciate what our children are doing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda. And that's again useful advice, so that we manage our expectations. Incidentally, all the parents usually have attained A's in their grades during their time. But of course, when you go to the resource leave, that's a different story. And so we need to manage our expectations, so that then we can live the real world, where our children also living in with the conditions that they have to live with and situations that they have to live with. Saratu, and maybe you take another one more comment and then we wind up.
Yes, I want to start by saying a big well done to our presenters. And what I just want to say is, as a person with visual impairment, I can assert that there is still a lot that needs to be done in terms of inclusion for persons with disability or special need, as we refer to it. And then as community development practitioners, we have a role to play. And we need to have it in mind that if we must have a prosperous society, if we are going to enhance and have the kind of environment or community that we are aspiring for, then everybody must be carried along. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I be allowed to give what? John Conwell, do you want to make a comment on, you've shared quite a bit of resources. Possibly you can give you an opportunity just to voice or summarize them for us.
No, I don't have much to add. I think I've shared a few. There was a comment earlier about lack of resources, so that prompted me to share several. But maybe you might want to think about compiling these somewhere, Daniel, or somebody at IACD, so that they can be accessible to others in the future. But thanks for the session. I don't really have anything else.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Jessica is going to save the chat so that then then share to all of us, and then there will be a permanent record of all this so that we can continually interact with the resources that have been graciously shared. And we are so grateful because then they enrich the whole process of our learning and sharing. Thank you very much. So we are coming to 5 minutes to the close of the time allotted, 1.5 hours. And I think we need to appreciate our presenters and also the parents who have shared their experiences with us. It's quite a topic that, of course, we can't do justice to it in 1.5 hours, but it's a great start and it's a great opportunity for us again now to re-engage and see how again we make a difference as we also reflect on the issues that people with disabilities have to deal with, and also the children with the disabilities also have to deal with. And so that then we can also be as supportive as possible to make life all the more livable in a way that is dignified for them. In the last 1 week, I was in the north of the country talking about the disaster reduction, risk reduction for, again, from a disability inclusive perspective. And one of the issues that was coming in, we have this, even some of these assistive devices, where one of our informants was telling us about, we still expect them to move around with wheelchairs in muddy places to access services. And it's something that we say we've given them a wheelchair, but the environment is such that the wheelchair cannot take them to the places where they need it to go when it is muddy, or when in some cases it's flooded. But these are things we take for granted most of the times. And so as we come to the close, and thank you, Emmanuel, thank you, Rebecca, thank you, Linda, and thank you for the parents for the perspectives. Wish you the best. Sorry about the connection, but we live in the real world where, again, some of these bandwidth issues keep on coming on. But at the end of the day, I think we've come out with something we can take forward in our discussion. In the next edition, in our Sub-Saharan Africa webinar series, we'll be having a masterclass in September 13th. It will be a masterclass on participation and inclusion and in community development. You are welcome. Again, the time remains the same, 11 a.m. East African time, 9 a.m. London time. So we'll be sharing the resources when they're available. The recording will be available when it is processed. And let's continue the engagement. Thank you very much. And thank you, Jessica, for the support from IACD Glasgow. Have a great day, and whatever time you have, all the best. Thank you very much.